Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you live to talk about episode 4 of the anime series Net-Juu no Susume. And I like a lot that we're getting finally to see some of the other sort of MMO in-game players outside of that. The store clerk, I was speculating that he was probably a player of this game that Motoko frequents, and that proved to be true. We finally have that confirmed. Although it's still sort of up in the air as to who he is in the game. Is he one of her sort of guild? Is, he's somebody she frequently has contact with in the game unbeknownst to her? Or is it just a coincidence that he happens to work at a store nearby where she lives, I was thinking it's probably a little too on the nose to assume he's Kanbei in the game, the green-haired character within the game, being that he is green-haired offline as well. You never know. That's probably too obvious an assumption to make, especially because he brought up the idea of the loot boxes and everything, and knew that was why Motoko was buying the card for extra digital money and everything like that. And then to see Kanbei in the game sort of scolding Lilac, the character of Lilac, who had spent tons of money. We see her offline as well. She's like a blonde girl, and we see her at the start of the episode offline, and then we cut back to her at one point during the episode as well, sort of reacting, that kind of thing. And so he's scolding her for spending all this money, knowing that she probably is a wealthy person in real life offline, at least enough to spend money without really any care or concern for things that just amount to sort of digital nothingness in an MMO, that kind of thing. And that whole argument, about pay to play and being charged extra money, actual real hard-earned cash for, little niceties in the games and everything like that. I'm kind of siding with Kanbei on that. I'm kind of like, I wouldn't spend that much extra money on that kind of stuff if I even had the access to play those games to begin with, which I don't. Maybe if I were in that position for a while, maybe I'd have a different, sort of a perspective on it. But I kind of side with Kanbei that, yeah, it's a little bit of a waste. You just sort of pretty up your character in a game. It doesn't really amount to much, and that's real money that is now no longer in your wallet, no longer lining your pockets, whatever like that. So I really liked that, we're getting nods to other offline characters. It's not just singularly surrounding Motoko and Yuta and everything like that. And I was hoping that would be the case. Of course, I'm hoping for more of a sort of, relationship development between them all. Maybe more of them broaching the idea of meeting offline. But I'm starting to suspect maybe that's not where this story is going. Maybe it's strictly going to keep things contained down outside of the relationship dynamic unfolding between Motoko and Yuta specifically. Maybe it's going to just, continue. We're going to get little glimpses here and there of these offline personas, the people who are playing the game, but maybe we're not going to see them commingle or get together or decide to meet each other, meet up in the real world, that kind of stuff, which is sort of the earliest idea I had about where this might be going. It might just be, containing that idea to Motoko and Yuta specifically, as I say, where they might hook up. And by the end of this episode, oh my God, I was so grateful that, Yuta is being given enough information because of the dilemma that Motoko is now dealing with offline. He's finally piecing it together as Lily in the game. His character persona is Lily. And because of their partnership, coming together as partners in the game and everything like that, they can confide in each other. And so now that Motoko has this dilemma in her male guise in the game, Hayashi, I think, is her male guise's name. She's talked about the whole affair because of the a-hole tactics of his buddy, his sort of business buddy, Koiwai. What an asshole this guy is. Knowing how Yuta feels about her, having run into Motoko and literally elbow to the face, sent her to the hospital, paid her medical bills, was turned down by Motoko for the simple fact of her own anxieties and things like that, social anxiety and her fears about herself looking too old or unkempt or, whatever like that. All of those things, all of those self-conscious things about herself. She sort of turned him down. And here comes Koiwai, listening over and over again to the plight of his buddy Yuta, who he flatly says what I said in the last episode discussion video, that he's kind of stalkery, you know. But I don't think that, you know, without any harm or foul, he's not wanting to stalk Motoko and kill her, you know. He'd like to get to know her. He wants to be her friend, maybe be a boyfriend, you know, get into a relationship with her. Who knows, you know. I don't sense anything malicious on Yuta's part. I do, however, sense a malicious undertone to Koiwai, who decides to use his little, you know, Google Maps on his phone and track down the convenience store she must frequent based on what Yuta has told him. And he just happens to run into her, as convenience would have it. Plot convenience, or just a random coincidence in general. Of course, being that this is fiction and it's a show, of course it is plot convenience. But dismissing that, he runs into her, and he point blank gets up in her face and is like, you know, before checking her out, I should say, you know, she's going into the store. He zooms in on, you know, the bust, and it doesn't click with him right away that, oh, this might be her. But then I guess he turns around, he looks back in the store, and he sees, you know, sort of the side view of her, and it's sort of, the bell goes off. So he goes back in the store after purchasing some goods, some snacks, and he just gets up in her face, and at first he's kind of like, oh, what do you think is a good bento box? You know, what's good for dinner? You know, that kind of thing. And then he, you know, he has to confirm it for himself, but once he confirms that this is Moriko, Mori-san, or whatever he called her, it's all bets are off. He's like a wolf in the fold. He's like, oh, let's go out. It's me. You remember me. You remember my voice. I remember you. You know, we talked on the phone. And she, of course, being sort of vulnerable in the moment that she recollects back on, it's the same thing, the same dynamic he was explaining to Yuta, that he had called, you know, the boss or whatever, and she was the through line, and she had a breakdown because she sounded tired. She was very put upon and had all these pent-up anxieties and everything like that. He didn't, I don't want to say he outright exploited that. He did comfort her in the moment. And he did try to talk her down and say, you know, it's all right. We all go through it. You know, this is a hard job. This is a hard life, working with these expectations and all this stuff. And still she would go on to quit, because we see just how racking and you know, like how much of a travesty that is to her. Stress-wise and anxiety-wise, she just wants no more part of it. And so it's just a real asshole tactic for him to then be like, after introducing himself, saying, oh, I know you. You know, we know each other. Let's go out for drinks. And sort of forcibly getting her contact info, you know, to then be able to go into work the next day and wave it in front of Yuta's nose. And something just fell. Some papers just fell off the table behind the camera. And I just wanted to smack him. I just wanted to choke him, because what an asshole tactic. You know, it's just, what a jerky thing to do. Knowing that Yuta has this genuine interest, and because of his own anxieties, because of his own reservations about, you know, how can I approach her without it being awkward at this point? You know, I mean, I guess he could just email her and say, hey, you know, I know some time has passed and, you know, you didn't really feel like going out or anything. I just wanted to know how you're doing. You know, that kind of thing. I still feel bad for what happened. You know, when I elbowed your schnoz. And, but so in the absence of that level of courage for, you know, Yuta to pick up with that, here we have Koiwai making the move instead. And, you know, part of me wanted to think, you know, in terms of Koiwai's better graces, that maybe this was somehow an extension of his trying to help Yuta. Like, if he met her and reconnected with her, he could eventually line them up again or something like that. But the whole essence of his then going to work the next day and waving it in front of Yuta's face and being like, oh, and she agreed to go out with me. It was like a smack upside the head. It was like just being a complete and total jerk to Yuta, you know, knowing how his friend is so interested in her and wants to get to know her. And then by the end, I mean, there's a little bit of hope still, because he has an in. He has a much closer in with her online than Koiwai will ever probably attain with her offline, and that through that, is that's sort of the through line through which that'll develop that much more. There's a much deeper connection between them, and that's probably more desirable in this case, the way they are, the way Yuta and Moriko are. It's probably that much more desirable to have that connection, to have gotten to know someone and confided in them and been able to talk to them, be supported by them and be supporting of them and all that kind of stuff, the way they've been, treating each other in the game. So that gives me some level of hope. But again, Koiwai making the move the way he did, it was just kind of malicious. It was just a real asshole tactic. I'm sure in my life I've been on the receiving end of something similar, and it's sad. It's sad that he would actually go to that extent. Oh, well, I see my friend is suffering. He wants to get to know this girl. Well, I'm going to make the move on her instead. In his absence of being able to, I'm going to go and do that. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe coming in the next episode, it'll turn out that Koiwai was doing this to help his friend. But he seems jerky in all of their previous interactions. Whenever they're in the restaurant talking, he seems kind of jerky. And I wouldn't put it past him to have exploited this lack of Yuta's own courage in trying to pursue Moriko, and his trying to pick up the slack through some selfish desire. I mean, maybe he is attracted to her, maybe not. He definitely recollected back to their phone call, and I don't know what direction he's coming from with it, but it feels like it's well, my buddy's not making a move, so I'm gonna do it. Not having any care or concern for his friendship and how his friend is feeling and whatever like that. And so that was a surprise, I will say, though. I would not have choreographed that or telegraphed that based on the way the story's been unfolding. I wouldn't have assumed Koiwai would get so personally involved the way he did in this episode. And it's a nice little wrench in the works because it was unexpected. It's now it can go any which way. And adding to that, the other leg dropping of Yuta's figuring it out that, oh, the person I'm talking to, Hayashi, in the game is probably Moriko, and the hope of that, the raising the eyebrows of hope there for Yuta potentially having, because he has that long-standing connection with her, unbeknownst to her, he can build off that. So it's an interesting development that Koiwai would become such an a-hole and make such an a-hole move the way he did. And that kind of excites me. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen now. Is Moriko going to go out on a date with him? Is it going to fail miserably? Is she going to find she likes him? She's, because of her personality and because of her reserved nature and her anxieties, the store clerk guy was being nice to her and she's blushing. And here this guy's being nice to her and she's blushing. And I just hope she won't fall to the graces of just some random person. And then it sort of breaks the heart of Yuta looking on, that kind of thing. Like, I hope she's more scrutinizing and actually has more of a sort of, concept in her mind of what she wants, what she's looking for, what would be better suited to her, rather than just flings with these guys or something like that. And that's all. That's all because even though I'm not somebody who ships characters, I am kind of shipping Yuta and Moriko. I want them to be able to get together. And I don't want anything to stand in the way of that. And that's why I'm so ticked off at Koiwai in this episode for what he did, this tactic, this move he made on her. So yeah, I mean, we shall see what happens from here with Yuta now having this knowledge, this awareness that this is probably Moriko I've been talking to all along on the MMO, in the MMO. And just following on with Moriko herself to find out, is she going to take Koiwai up on his offer? Is she not? Is she going to think better of it? And the fact that it was such a dilemma, such a burden for her that she went to Lily, not knowing it's Yuta, but that she went to him effectively again. That strengthens the bond between them. And then again, we might see some manipulation coming from the side of Yuta. He might be like, well, if this is Moriko and Koiwai was like trying to get the jump on her, well, you know, ward her off from him. Tell her, warning, warning, don't go anywhere near that guy, you know, or girl in this case, as she related the story in a male guise. And so I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this particular episode of Net-Juu no Susume, if you've seen it as well. If you enjoyed it as much as I did, found the wrench in the works of Koiwai making this asshole tactic. Do you agree with me that it was an asshole tactic? Maybe you don't. Maybe you think, you know, it's fine. He's a nice guy and he's deserving of love too. Whatever like that. Whatever excuses you can make to excuse his behavior. You know, maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think he's pure and he's wholesome and he's genuine and he is much deserved of Moriko's attentions as Yuta is. But maybe you agree with me that no, he isn't. He's an asshole. He's a jerk for making this move the way he did, being a wolf in the fold, as I say. And let me know all of that good stuff in the comments below. Otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.